Rallyman. Rallyman is a game that came out a couple of years ago. I had never tried it, but I don't know when or how I learned about it, but it's a game that I wanted to try, which is peculiar because I'm usually not a big fan of racing games, but then last year I played Thunder Alley and I really enjoyed that, so I thought, maybe this is a genre that is worth trying more. But Rallyman somehow I was already curious about before. Maybe it is because Rallyman also has the option of being played solitaire. I always like to have that option. It's great if you can play a game both solitaire and against other players, so that if no one is around, you can still play the game. And I like the idea here that it tries to capture the idea of the rally in which you do not win by being the first one that reaches the end of the track, but by being the one who performs better than anybody else, so spends less time. In this sense, pretty much every player plays alone. It is a bit of a multiplayer solo, but there are things that happen during the game that allow you to mess up things for your opponents. You're performing your own thing, taking your own turn, timing your own actions, but at the same time, if you throw dirt in the middle of the track, then people that are behind you are not going to be particularly happy about that. You are creating disadvantages for other people. There are still ways of influencing each other, but generally speaking, it is a multiplayer solo that, guess what, you can also play as a solo game. Let me show how the game works. The game comes with 4 double-sided boards that you can use to build your track or tracks from game to game. As you can see, each board has many segments of tracks, so that means that you can combine 2, 3, or 4 of these boards in different ways by changing the orientation, changing the combination to form a large variety of different tracks. For example, here I create a track that goes from here, goes all around here and exits the board from there, and you have little start and finish markers that you place at the end and beginning of your track to indicate the ground that your mini car will try to cover, will cover most likely. It really is a mini car. They aren't kidding when they call it like that in the rulebook. So you place your mini car at the beginning of the track, and the first turn of the game, only the first player goes. So the first player will run, move a little bit. Then the second turn, first and second player go. First turn, third turn, first, second, and third, and so on and so forth. Players enter the game one at a time, one each turn, to simulate the distance and the time that is placed between the entrance of the cars on the track. Remember, here it is not about getting to the end of the track first, but simply to do it in less time than the players do. The game uses dice to regulate movement. You have dice with numbers from 1 to 5, and they represent the gears that your car will be using. If I'm rolling the die with a 1, then I'm in first gear. The die with the 2, I'm in second gear, and so on and so forth. The die for first gear has a single danger symbol on one of the sides and simply the number 1 printed on all of the other sides. Here you have 2 white dice which are used when you are staying in the same gear in which you are. They're called acceleration dice, and they also have a single danger symbol, and then all the other sides are blank. All the other dice have the number that indicates the gear on 4 of their sides and the danger symbol on 2 of the sides. You start the game in first gear, so at the beginning of the game you will roll this die, and then to determine the movement that you can accomplish, you will roll multiple dice. You decide how many dice and which ones you roll and in which order, but there are 2 basic ways of doing this. You may roll the dice one at a time, which is a safer way of doing it, or you may decide in advance that you want to roll all of the dice that you will roll. For example, I decide this turn I'm gonna roll these 4 dice, then I roll them all at once. It's a little more dangerous for reasons that I will explain. You always start by rolling the die corresponding to the gear that you are at. Suppose I am in first gear, then I start by rolling this die. I rolled it. Well, if I'm in first gear, maybe I don't want to roll the 1 for the 2. I rolled the 1 for the first gear. Alright, then I'm moving, vroom, vroom, vroom. Now I can decide to stop there, which wouldn't be very wise. I probably want to move a little faster, a little further. So I can stay in the same gear by rolling one of these dice. And suppose I rolled a blank, then I move another space. So you can roll either the dice representing the gear that you are at, so you're moving within the same gear, but there is only a limited amount of such dice, or you can move to a gear above, or you can move to a gear below if a die is available for that. So here from first I decided, for example, to move twice using these dice, then decide to move to third, to second, and then maybe to third, and I decide to move to fourth too. Ta-da! So I rolled all of my dice and I perform my movement. Interesting enough, the idea is that I'm trying not to obtain 3 danger results. If I do so, then I lose control of the car and I will pay a penalty for that. But suppose that that didn't happen, then simply I perform my movement, and then I take a card from these decks indicating the gear that I'm ending my turn in. So as you can see, there are decks for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and this one is for when you're taking a shortcut. I've ended my turn in 4 gear, then I take this card and I put it in my personal pile. This has 2 uses. First, it reminds me of the gear that I ended a turn at, so that I know the gear I will have to begin at the beginning of the next turn. And also here is a total time that I used to perform my turn. Next turn I will start by rolling a 4, and then I decide to do other stuff, and suppose that I end my turn in second, then I take this other card and I put it on top of my pile. As you can see here, there is a higher amount of time. I'm trying to accumulate as little time as possible. This is the purpose of the game. As I said, I may decide to roll one by one and see where that leads me, so I can stop before I accumulate 3 danger symbols, or I can decide to roll them all together, all of my dice together, in which case, if I roll 3 symbols, then I execute my movement as much as I can, then I resolve the losing control of the car procedure. But if I manage to perform my turn successfully and I rolled all of my dice at the same time, then I gain this bonus here, which simply means that I saved a second. These tokens will count against my total time at the end of the race, against meaning that they will be subtracted by the total time that I've accumulated through these cards. As you can see, the track has little numbers printed in some of its areas. Those numbers represent the maximum speed at which you can move into that area. This turn here has 2 numbers, a 3 and a higher one, which is repeated multiple times. Here's the same here, 2 and 3, 2 and several 3s. That means that that's the maximum speed at which I can enter that section. If I am a speed not higher than 3, I can move into this section of that space, and then I can keep moving by spending dice. If I'm entering here at speed of 4, then I have to enter this area, which means I am skidding. And it's pretty exciting that you can skid through the turn, but of course that means that you need to keep the same acceleration so that you can keep skidding, or you can lower your gear, and in which case you move to the interior. If you're skidding, then the number that you see outside in all these areas is the exact number that you need to match. If you're entering a turn too fast, suppose that I am a speed 5 here, or if you roll 3 danger symbols on your die, then you take a card from the gear deck corresponding to the gear that you are at, but you look at the opposite side, which tells you both the total time that you have accumulated. It reminds you of the fact that now your speed has dropped to 0, so you will have to start with going into first gear next turn. And also there is another symbol here indicating what happens. This is a lucky occurrence. It simply means that my car spins a little bit, but at the end of the spinning I'm still on the track. Worst thing may happen, because especially at high gears you may end up leaving the road towards the left side or toward the right side. In which case, you simply look at the type of terrain that you have encountered and different things may happen. You may or may not take damage. When you take damage, then you will lose dice and you will record the number of dice that you have lost simply by placing a marker on your dashboard here. Each player has one such dashboard. There are shortcuts that you can take to cut through corners. They also have a maximum speed. If you move through a shortcut, then you take a card from the shortcut deck and you simply flip it and look at the other side. It may be a go, which means you're lucky, you're simply moving through a shortcut, which is great, and you don't have any penalty, no other effect applies. But other things may happen. For example, you may lose a white die because that represents a puncture that you got in your wheel. Or another effect that may happen, you may have kicked some dirt into the main turn, so you will add a token there to indicate that fact, and now the maximum speed that players can approach the turn at is reduced by 1. Bumps are also pretty fun. This is the recommended speed that you are moving at. If you're moving at lower than the speed, so there would be a 3 there, then you simply move into that area. If you're moving at the recommended speed, you jump over the bump to the next area, and there is no danger for you. If you move at 1 speed above the recommended speed, then you move forward by 1, 2, and 3. That's a really long thing. But you will lose control of the car if the die that you used rolls a danger symbol. And if you are 2 points above the recommended speed, then you will go very far, but you will definitely lose. You will go very far because you will go an extra space, but you will definitely lose control of your car once you land. There are a couple of extra things, but this is the main idea. You play through 3 races on different tracks. You keep track of the total time that you accumulated, reducing it by using these markers here. Oh, these markers actually can also be spent during gameplay to roll dice safely, so you do not have to worry about danger symbols. It costs a single second marker to roll a die safely. It costs 2 to roll a second die safely, and so on and so forth. But this is the basic idea. You simply run or race through 3 tracks, and at the end, the player who has accumulated the lowest amount of time is the winner of the rally.
I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. It felt a little procedural at the beginning. I was a little like, oh, I don't know, it just felt very abstract. But then the connection with the theme emerged, and I started enjoying the idea of racing my little microcar, really micro. It's easy to misplace it and just make sure you don't lose yours. I guess you can replace it with other microcars. But I really liked it. I really got the sense that I was driving this little microscopic darn thing. That's seeing my microcar skidding along a curve as it was maybe getting dangerously close to rocks or to other dangerous terrain, depending on the terrain that you encounter when you lose control of the car, and if you get pushed out of the road, different things may happen. Your car may get damaged, your car may lose dice so that you will not be able to roll. You rarely get to roll all of the dice, or maybe I'm playing suboptimally, but there are few times in which I really managed to roll even most of my dice. So maybe I play a little conservatively, maybe I was too afraid of losing dice. I could have pushed forward. But even if you get out, if you end up out of the road in a place where the terrain doesn't damage you, so you do not lose dice, you did lose some time. So the time that you get from the time card if you lost control of your vehicle is pretty severe. And yes, there are times in which I'm just speeding up like crazy in part of the track, and then I realize, oh shoot, I'm just no way I can slow down in time before that curve, which is very thematic. It works very well. It is about calculated risk, and I like how You have flexibility not just in how much risk you want to take, meaning how many dice you want to roll, but in the way in which you roll the dice. I much like the fact that you can take risks early in the game and gain those little 1 second tokens that then you can spend to roll dice safely. Those 1 second tokens, there may be cases if you really have a lot of them in which you maybe will make a difference of 10 seconds, 15 seconds, 20 seconds, whatever. But even if you just lose control of your vehicle once, you lose a full minute. So it is really much better to spend those to prevent you from doing that than to accumulate them and to use them as a resource at the end. I guess they may have an effect, but it seems to me that it's almost a no-brainer that they will have a larger impact on the overall situation in the game if you spend them to roll safely so that you're not taking too many risks, you're taking calculated risks, and that prevents you from losing control of your vehicle when you are pushing your luck a little bit. Effectively, you're performing an action that could force you to push your luck, but you're spending these resources so that your luck is not so pushed. I like the fact that you can create many different tracks, from very short ones to pretty convoluted ones. I know there's an expansion that adds even more tracks, but unfortunately that seems to have gone out of print and seems to be pretty expensive. I've seen absolutely insulting prices online, and I don't know that I want to pay that kind of money for extra tracks. I wouldn't mind having some extra tracks because I definitely want to play this game in the future. But I think that there will be enough variety here, enough replay value that I can have by simply combining these 4 terrain tiles in different ways to keep the game fresh. Thunder Rally may still be a game that I like more. It feels more epic, so to speak. It feels like it has a different flow. It's also a little more complex, and there are more layers. I think Rallyman is a game that I can teach to players that are less familiar with gameplay, that want to put less effort in it. I think it can be more friendly to the less regular gamer. As opposed to Thunder Rally, you probably need more of a player who wants to put in the work, not just the work to learn the game, but also to make it work effectively. I think it's a game that demands more from the player, as opposed to Rallyman, which is more of a beer and pretzel racing game. But if you want to take it seriously, then there are enough decisions to keep you interested, enough story, enough narrative to come out from this that it doesn't feel like you're just rolling dice and spending little tokens. It does feel pretty thematic. And I'm not even a big fan of rallies per se. I don't think I ever watched one. But I like to play a game about rallies because I think that the mechanics are interesting, they feel thematic, they create a good narrative, and they create a game that once you know how to play it, doesn't feel too long, doesn't feel too cumbersome. The opponent may roll dice a lot if the opponent chooses to go one by one, but unless you're playing with a ton of players, the pace of the game remains pretty quick. Once players know what they're doing, especially if they decide to try the luck and roll all of their dice at once, and they plan ahead what they want to do with those, then a turn can be as simple as shake, 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 roll, move, 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 done. So it can be as procedural or as smooth and quick moving as the players decide it to be. Rallyman came out a couple of years ago. Probably you know a lot about it. It's one of these games in which I come late to the party, but after I play it, I still like to make a video and share my impressions and ideas with you, because maybe you are one of the few people after me that hasn't played the game yet, or maybe you have played it and you wanna just see what I think, so we can have a dialogue, we have an exchange. Let me know what you think about this game if you played it before. I know that I enjoyed it. I know that I enjoyed it as a solitaire game. I think that version also works pretty well. You're just challenging yourself to do better and better from game to game. As a multiplayer solo, it works pretty well too. It provides a nice challenge to all players. So Rallyman took me a while before I decided to try this game, but I'm happy I did, and I'm happy that this game is in my collection. And if you play it, I think you can have fun too.